Oh,
Naftali, don't do that. We're not gonna have enough room tomorrow morning. What are you doing?
For your voice, it's worth no room.
Oh.
Okay, so now we're in the middle of discussing. We're on Dalar and Aleph. We're 6 lines down from the top. So we're in the middle of discussing how we know that Kesef, there's a kinyan of Kesef. So we learned it out from Vayotza from Amma Avriya, because it says that Amma Avriya, a woman who sold as a slave, a girl who sold as a slave, goes out free, right? Automatic if she's not freed by 12 and a half. So we're going to have a couple more kashas on that. And then the Gemara is going to discuss at what age Amavriya goes free, either when she's a naira or a begeres, and why do we need both? Because l'chayra, if you're already a begeres, why does the Torah need to say you're a begeres if you can't become a begeres unless you're a naira? Right? You can't be 12 and a half unless you first 12. Even with my darche arithmetic from before, I'm saying you can only, right? You can't become 12 and a half unless you become 12. That's a number aleph. And then the Gemara on number base is going to continue with the Amavriya. Yeah, and what we learn now from it. Okay, so Gemara asks now. So again, we were holding that v'yatza chinam ein kasef means that a woman, Amavriya, the slave, the servant, whatever you call a female slave, maid servant, right, goes out. Chinam ein kasef. So we said that ain't kasef for this, but there is kasef someplace else, which is for marriage, that the father gets to keep. The father gets to keep the kasef, right? So Gemara says, we need the yatzachinam to teach something else. Again, we're 6 lines down. Look at the Tani of yatzachinam elu bagras, that she goes out free when she's a begeres, meaning when she's 12 and a half. Then she goes, meaning whenever a girl gets simanim, that she becomes a naira, and then 6 months later she becomes a begeres. Ein kesef elu yemei nairas. These are the days of nairas. So meaning you see that you need 2 psukim. One, the yatzachina, to tell you that a girl who's 12 and a half, let's call it 12 and a half, goes out free if she's not redeemed before then. And Ein Kosef is telling you that a girl that's 12 goes out for free. Right? So again, like we just mentioned, it's an obvious question. If a girl age 12 goes out free, then a girl age 12 and a half for sure goes out free. But we'll get back to that. But either way, the Gemara is saying that's what we need for Yatzachinam and Kosef, not to tell you that there's Kesef someplace else, that the father gets Kesef. Right? So Maravina, Imkein, Leimakra on Kesef. A very interesting limud. It should say on Kesef without a yud. Well, meaning I don't think it changes the pronunciation, but when you put a yud in a word, you don't necessarily, a yud for ein, let's say aleph, yud, nun, takes the place of what we call a tseire under the aleph, right? You could just knock out the yud because the pronunciation of under the aleph, you make it a doesn't, right? Ein doesn't need a yud there, right? But we put the yud there anyways. So what I'm saying, really, the Torah didn't have to write it with a yud. Right? It could have just wrote it with Aleph Nun, and we need a Balkaira to tell you how to pronounce it, but that would be enough. But the Torah stuck a yud in there. So my ein kesef laden zeh, yesh kesef laden acher. There is no money to this master because the girl goes free, but there is money to another master, and who is that? That's the father. Right? Fine. So. Again, we're darshaning the word ein kasef to tell us 2 things. The whole concept ein kasef is mean ein kasef to this master, but the other master, meaning the father, does get kasef for her marriage. Right?
Are we comparing the yitzia to haknasa? For instance, here she goes out free ein kasef. Well, that's good. That's on a yitzia. So when we say that there is kasef till the av. So when is that? That's when the Av marries her off, gives her away, and that's not a yitzia. It's a yitzia from his rishus, but it's a haknasa to somebody else's rishus.
So we're gonna get. So Gemara's gonna ask something like that. The Gemara's gonna ask it. Very good. Very good. Yeah, so now we're saying that we're darshaning this thing from the extra yud. So Gemara says, who says that you're allowed to darshan that an extra yud? The Tanya Vazera Einla. This is talking about a girl who a Bas Kayin marries a Yisrael, so then she can no longer eat truma. And when she gets divorced or she becomes a widow, then she can go back to her father's house and eat truma unless she has kids. If she has kids, then she's done from truma, even after her husband either divorces her or dies. So how do we know this? Because it says zera einla. If she doesn't have kids, she can go back to her father's house and eat the truma. Ainli el zara. This only tells us if she has kids. Zera zara minayin. What happens if she has grandchildren? Meaning her kids died, but she still has grandchildren alive. Does that also make her not be able to eat truma? Kamalaymar zera einla. She doesn't have kids. Ayin means look into it and make sure she doesn't have any sort of kids. Mainly zera kosher. That's only if she has kosher kids. Zera pasal minayin. What about zera pasal? Tamalayma zera einla. She doesn't have kids. Ayin la. Look into it. Meaning any type of kids. As long as there's something that came out from her, that's considered like she has kids, and therefore she cannot eat truma in her father's house. Yeah.
It's mashma that's more than just that. It's the yud is extra, but it's the way you're pronouncing it. It's ayin la. Almost like the it's not just the extra yud that they darshan. It's the way it's pronounced that they're saying ayin, but you should be ma'ayin into her. We don't see that lagabi here.
Oh, good. So
it's like a special drasha. It's like over here, there's no ayin la.
Correct.
You're darkening the olive with an iron also. So it's not.
No, sometimes that's interchangeable. That I've heard. The idea of being the ayin and the olive can be interchangeable at times. But it's a different type of drasha. There, it's like the pronunciation is ayin ba. Here, it's just the extra yud.
Yeah, okay, so it's a drasha, but that's why I think the Gemara says. I think Akiva, the Gemara's kasha, will answer what you're saying. I think so. Let's see. Meaning here it's darshaning the ain law to ayin law. Fine. So the Gemara says, "Well, fikta. We already used ayin law to say about her grandchildren. So how do you say that ayin law is coming to teach about mamzerim? So it says zera zara lo yitzrukra. For grandchildren, you don't need a pasuk. The bnei banim hareim kebanim. Right? Grandchildren are considered like regular children. Right? Ki itzrukra. And then what do you need the pasuk? Well, the zera pasuk. For zera pasuk, that even if the woman has kids who are mamzerim or grandkids that are mamzerim, that still will make her not be able to eat truma once her husband dies or her husband divorces her. Right. So now, so now the Gemara says, and I think this is what the Gemara, I think this is what Akiva was saying. But Tana Gufei minali didarshachi. Where does the Tana himself have the right to darshan this? Meaning, we're saying we just said where he knows it from the Zera Ein law, right? But that wasn't enough. Meaning, I don't know, maybe because of Akiva's concern or something along those lines. And what I'm saying, well, how do you know that you stam darshan without the different pronunciation?
Well, right? Rashi says it a little differently. Rashi's saying, how do you know that you could read it without the yud? I don't know. That's not my kasha. Rashi's saying, make the taste that ain could be spelled without a yud.
Right.
Ain can't be spelled without a yud, then you can't darshan it at all.
Well, it's not. Well, he's not saying ain with meaning that you could darshan the ain without the yud.
But right? if you can't pronounce ain without a yud, then you can't use it for a drush. It's not extra.
Correct, but then you can't use the zera zara either or mamzer
in a chanami. So that's the right, but that's a different question. My question is the drush of ain is mashma. The pronunciation is it's not an extra yud from the zera zara. It's not just stam the extra yud. It's the way you're pronouncing it. Ayin ba.
Yeah.
Maybe we have that all the time. We change pronunciation for drushes. That's not an uncommon thing.
No, I understand, but in our case, it's not ayin ba then.
No, all we need is an extra yud. Once you have an extra yud.
So then, what are you bringing me rise with zera zara? Zera zara is because of pronunciation. It's not because of the extra yud.
No, it's not. It's because there's an extra yud. Because there's an extra yud, you can read it ayin.
And ayin la. It's very specific. How you can?
It's just a little different drasha. It's just a little different drasha. That's all. That's what I think.
Yeah, what do you mean? That the Gemara is mashma that it's because of the way it's being read. Ayin ba. It's not stam because there's an extra yud.
Right.
It starts with an extra yud. Once you have the extra yud, you do whatever you want with it. One drasha
That's
uses
not
it.
the way the
Right,
Gemara
but
is
then why does the Gemara need to ask what's the source for it? What's the source? What do you mean? Zera Zara is the source. Right? So the Gemara is
For
asking
what?
really the Tana for that you could dash an extra yud.
Right, that was the source. And then so how did even that Tana? How did he know you can dash the extra yud?
I
Maybe
understand. So
Aleph
then,
with a yud with a nun means no, and Aleph nun does not.
right. So then the Gemara is going to give an answer, and then Rabbanon's one of Rabbanon's favorite answers, right? And then the Gemara, like, well, maybe how did he know that? Right? Okay, where do you stop the chain? Okay, whatever it is. Vatana gufemi nali the darashachi. Where does the Tana know this? Amri ksiv me'ain bilam u'me'ain yavami. Right? Again, another thing we're learning out from Bilam. Right? Another. Not only do we start off our davening with Matoivu Ayalecha Yaakov, right? But we're learning this out too. So me'ain bilam me'ain yivmi. It says me'ain and spelled without a yud. The like ksiv yud. V'hacha ksiv be'yud. Shma minala Joshuda asa. So really what the Gemara is saying, we need a source where Aleph, I think that's really the answer. Meaning we need a source that they spelled the Aleph, they spelled Ain without an Aleph. That we don't have a source. That's the source.
Without a yud.
I'm sorry, did I say Aleph? I meant the Yud. I'm sorry. Without a Yud. Thank you. Without a Yud. Right? That's the source. I mean, you have to have somewhere in the Torah that it's spelled Me'ain is spelled without a Yud. If it's spelled with a Yud every single time, then you can't darshan it. That's what's mashma here. If it's spelled every time with a Yud, so that's the way you spell it. So we found by Bilam that it's spelled without a Yud. Okay, so that means now we could darshan it. Right? Okay. Now, then the Gemara continues, I'm sorry, right? Because we know that there's two things that the father gets to keep from the daughter. One is whatever she does, and two is her marriage money. So why do you need both? Why do you need psukim to say both? So Gemara says, if you say the Kiddushin is the father, you would think because there's no tircha, right? He didn't. What kind of tircha did she do, right? What if she goes to work? So what? She should go to work, and the father gets to keep the money. So let's say it's going to be hers. And if it's going to say it's the ka mitzana because she is because she's getting fed from the father. But kedushin money, that's not money that she works for. Meaning she's working in order to pay her father back for the food that he's feeding her. Okay, so then that would make sense. But stam kedushin money, maybe that's her free money. Maybe she doesn't give it to the father. So you would think that she gets to keep it. So tzricha, that's why we need two psukim to teach that the father gets to keep her work money and her kedushin money. Fine. Gufa. So now Gufa, as we know, is always a quote. So this is what we mentioned before. She goes out for free, meaning when she's 12 and a half. Again, we're calling Bagras 12 and a half. It's not necessarily 12 and a half. It's 6 months after she becomes a Naira, right? And Naira means once she hits puberty. So v'yatzachinam elu yemei Bagras. That's the days of Bagras. That means if she was not redeemed from being a slave, she walks out the door scot-free when she's 12 and a half. Ain't kasab, and no money, we darshan elu yemei Nairas. That's referring to Yemei Nairas. Okay, so the obvious question: just say that if she wasn't redeemed by the age of 12, she walks out the door. Right? Why do you need to say, oh, if she doesn't get redeemed by 12, she walks out the door? And we need another pasuk to say if she doesn't get redeemed when she's 12 and a half, she walks out the door. Well, of course. I mean, you can if you walk out the door when you're 12, so you'd certainly walk out the door when you're 12 and a half. So Amar Rabba Bazeh Belimin Alzeh. No, one is coming to teach the other one. Why? Because without one, if you wouldn't say both, then you're going to think that it's only at 12 and a
The
half,
second one. Yeah.
right? If you're only going to say one drasha, you're going to think, okay, so 12 and a half. So the Gemara is going to say, so that's why we need two. We'll get back to that. Midi similar to Hava Taishav Asachir. So we know that Taishav and Asachir is that an Eved Kanani is allowed to eat truma. A lot of Kayan stuff for you, Naftali, land on tonight, right? So a Kayan, his Eved Kanani is considered his property. Eved Kanani can eat truma, right? It's like an animal. It's like his animal. He can eat truma. An Eved Ivri, a Yiddish slave, cannot. Now you have two types of Jewish slaves, two Yiddish slaves. You have one that's a slave till Shemitah, right? And he goes free at Shemitah. Or he could say he loves being a slave so much, they bust his ear, and then he stays until Yovel. Right? Those are the two types. So the Pasuk says that neither one of those is allowed to eat Truma, right? Because they're regular Yid. They're not fully owned by the Kohen. So why do you need two? Right? The Tanya, right? Taishav Zekani Kinyan Olam. A Taishav is somebody who is owned forever. Again, forever is Lav Dafka. Forever means until Yovel. Yeah. Schir, someone who's rented Zekani Kinyan Shonim. That's an Eved Ivri who's owned for years, for a few years, meaning till Shemitah. Right. So why do you need to say both of them? Yoimar Taishav v'lo Yoimar Sachir. All you have to do is say a Taishav, and you don't need a Sachir, because if a guy who's your slave for the next 50 years or 49 years, whatever it is, can't eat Truma, so certainly the temporary that's only for 7 till the 7th year can't eat Truma. Right? If somebody who's bought forever can't eat, somebody who's bought for years, just for years, isn't it a Kavachaimer? So the Gemara says, but if you would have just done that, you would have translated the word Taishav, which we're translating now, which we were translating and we are translating as a permanent Eved. We would have translated it as a temporary Avokane Kinyan Olam, but somebody who taka was his ears was busted and he's a permanent slave, he would taka be able to eat Truma. Right, so Eichel, he could eat it. So bas Sachir v'limen al Taishav. So that's where the word Sachir comes to teach us about Taishav. Shavi shakone kinyan olam, even though he's bought forever, ain't Eichel, he doesn't eat. Right, so again, so basically what it's saying is that if I would have just said the word Taishav, I would have said that the Taishav doesn't mean a 50-year Eved. It means a 7-year, again, we're talking about maximum years. It means a 7-year Eved. Right, Ememela. If it means a 7-year Eved, then I would say a 50-year Eved could eat Truma. So therefore it needs to say Taishav and Sachir to tell us that one means a 7-year Eved and one means a 50-year Eved. Right? Fine. So Amalei Abaya, me dummy, who says you can, and so Memela, we're learning that out to this Naira and Bageras. If it would just said one, then I would say that that's referring to the Bageras, but meaning the 12 and a half, but the 12-year-old will not go free. So therefore needed to say two psukim to tell us that not only is the 12 and a half-year-old go free, but the 12-year-old also goes free. I'm going to ask, so there can't be, you can't compare the two. Hasam Trey Gufe Ninhu. There's two bodies. You have the guy who's the 50-year slave, and you have a 7-year slave. The Chinami, because of Rahman Taishav, Nirtza Lo Yoichel, right? That's because that's the pasuk needed to say another pasuk to tell you that the long-term guy, the guy whose ears were busted, doesn't eat. But because of idach, and then it says the other one. So have a sachir milsa to asiva kavachaymer, because a sachir is something that you learn from a kavachaymer. According to this shita, and even though you could learn it out from a kavachaymer, I mean again, if a 50-year eved can't eat truma, so certainly a 7-year eved can't eat truma. But something that this opinion goes with, that even though you can learn it out from a kavachaymer, the Torah still says it. The Torah still feels it needs a pasuk. But here we're talking about one girl's body. She's 12, and then she becomes 12 and a half. It's not two different things. Ki nafkala b'nairus, bagras my boy gabe. If she goes out free when she's a naira, when she's 12, so what are we talking about 12 and a half? right? Meaning, basically, the Gemara's question is by the Toshim and the Safar, they're two different slaves. You have a 7-year slave, you have a 50-year slave, right? So you need 2 psukim for that. But here, it's one girl. She's 12, and then she's 12 and a half, right? Elomar Abaye, so Abaye changes the pshat. Lo nitzucha ela lebagar the islandess. We're talking about a girl who's a begeres, which means she's already mature, but she is an islandess. Now, an islandess, as we know from Yevamis, Ksubis, is a girl who does not mature at all. She has no simanim whatsoever. Right? So, okay, so then when is she considered an adult? So we say that she's an adult at age 20. She becomes an adult. The default is age 20, right? Until then, meaning islandess is just she looks like a kid, right? So we're talking about here. What happens if you have an eved or not an eved and an amma, a girl?
Why does it have to be 20? I don't understand.
Where they get 20 from?
Yeah, I mean, if it's 12 and a half that we say that the signs come, right? So say 14, say 13.
No, because that's how long we wait to see.
But the point is that 12 and a half, we say there's already signs. So if you already know their birthday, that you're going to 20, if you say there was no birthday, whatever it is back then, whatever, they can go by age. But if you're saying 20, you can assume 13.
No, that's no, we don't. No, we don't.
Why do you say there's signs that she's an adult? Because we have to have signs, right? To know that she's 12 and a half, no?
Yes, but she doesn't have signs, so we don't know.
Right. So you can't figure it out from that. So you wait a little longer or whatever, and you know for sure she's 13.
So that's what it says. We wait till 20.
But 27 more years.
No, not
That's
20.
much longer than needed, no?
It is much longer. I don't know where. Yeah, I don't know where they got the number from. It could be I didn't know, but I don't remember the Gemara, or the Mefarshim. But they held till 20.
What?
That's
Are you
an
asking
island.
if?
That's
if
only
are
by
you
an
asking?
islandess.
What?
Are you asking
By
if there's some
islandess.
money? See, Yaakov, isn't it possible that she could get some money at 14?
It is possible.
Yeah, so Naftali, it's very possible until 20 she could still get some money. Simonim is not it means that she matured later.
I see what you're saying. So even though she's 12 and a half, whatever it is, she's not.
Right.
No,
Age
Tully's
itself
not
is
understanding.
a
He's not understanding. He's thinking that that you're waiting to 20 for her to become a gadol. He's not understanding it's an island as you're waiting for her to have some money
Well, yeah, but maybe she's not.
Yes, but you're waiting till 20.
He's asking, he's thinking you're waiting for her to become a gadol. Why are you waiting 7 years for her to become a gadol?
She's not a gadol.
You're saying,
until 20.
right. She's not anything until 20 because it's an islandess. It's simonim. It's different. It's not. You're not waiting for.
I know,
it's two different things. He's missing.
Right,
he's
but
in-
he
She's
assumed
still
that
an islandess
age-
after when she's 20. She's still an
right, the point is
islandess.
it confirms islandess at 20.
She's still an islandess, but she becomes a begeris, basically.
Okay.
Meaning she becomes a gadol or gadola when she's 20, regardless of whether she has simanim. But we wait.
Yeah,
till
that's
20.
when you're Einstein. You get Einstein.
I wonder. There must be a connection. There must be a connection with that and the ancient. Yeah. So anyways, so we're talking about a begeris who's an island. Because we would have thought Benairus Tepuk. So we would have thought that she goes out when she's 12. Now, 12, obviously, you have no idea whether she's an islandess. She's too young, right? But Bagrus loy Tepuk. But with Bagrus, she doesn't go out. And Memela, this girl will never go free, right? Because she hasn't shown any simanim. Kamash Malon, that an islandess does go free, right? Meaning at 20, she's going to go free. I mean, you would think she'll never go free, right? Meaning, if you're going to just say to Naira, so then a Naira goes free, fine. But what about a begeris? So, okay, so this girl never became a begeris because she's an islandess, right? So maybe she doesn't go free. Now, clearly, we must be talking about where she became an Ebed after she was a Naira. I mean, whatever, after Naira days, after 12, I'm saying. Otherwise, how do we know? So I'm not sure exactly when it happened. But the point is, the Gemara says, that since this girl never ever got simanim, so maybe she'll never go free. Kamash Malan, no, she's going to go free at the age of 20. Right? Fine. So Mazal Mari Baravashi, the last in line, Lav Kavachimer wasn't a Kavachimer. Ma Simonim Shein Matzim Rishus Av. Simonim, don't take her out of her father's Rishus, right? Because she's in her father's Rishus. Again, Simonim is Naira. But Geras is when she leaves her father's Rishus. That's 6 months after Naira. So Simonim don't get her out of her father's Rishus. Might see in Rishus Adon, but they do take her from her master's out of Rishus because she has a Naira gets her out. So Bagris, Shemitziyim Rishus Av, Bagris, which does take her out of her father, right? Once she's 12 and a half, she leaves her father's Rishus, anything Shemitziyim Rishus Adon. So sure, it should take her out of her father's Rishus. So the Kavachimer should tell us that we don't need a pasuk, right? Which Gemara is going to ask on Amud Beis. Well, we just got finished saying that we do this shita holds that you do. The pasuk does have the right words, even though you can learn from a Kavachimer.
So Yaakov, how do we know that this in between time for her when she doesn't have someone that indeed? How do we know that she ever has that din? Meaning, you're saying there's this. How do we know she has a special din bagros at 20?
From the pasuk of Ein Kesef.
No, how do we know an islandess has a special din bagros at 20?
Because at 20 she becomes a begeres.
You're saying that's just the din. She becomes a begeres at 20.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
had that Gemara. We had it in Saita, no?
I
It
don't know
was a
where we
three-way
had it.
machlekes, whether it was 18, 20, or 21.
Oh, the ages, yeah. Was 21? That was one of the shitas?
6, 7.
Yeah. I don't remember. Anyways, but that's the Gemara's kasha. It should be a Kavachimer that she should go free. We're talking about when the ikar sale of the islandess, right? When it first happened. That when a girl gets simon of nairus habizvina, that's when the sale happens. The loyas simon nairus loy habizvina zvina. It would not have been a sale in the first place. Meaning, what happens? The father sells the daughter at age 10. Okay, so we're only going to know that the sale works once she got simonim, once she hit puberty, right? But if she never gets the simonim, then lemafreya, she was never belonging to the master because the sale was no good, right? So that's what we would have thought. On Tomei Beis now, Kamash Malan. That's what the pasuk teaches. We yatzachinam, right? That even though she never was, she never became a naira, right? But the mechira was good. Was a good mechira, right? Fine. Ulamar Baravashi, don't have Kavachimer, but according to Mar Baravashi, who asked the kasha that isn't a Kavachimer, right? Again, he said, well, we're going to learn a Kavachimer. If a begeres, how does it go to Kavachimer again? If by a naira she has simonim, she doesn't go out of her father's rishus, but begeres she does. So then a Kavachimer, then for sure she should go out of her master's rishus, right? So we had a Kavachimer. Didn't we just say that this shita holds that you have to write it in a pasuk? So my answer is that's only if you have no answer. And then we answer it. Again, a difficult thing to understand. So he's saying if we have a way to explain, right? The Kavachimer, meaning the extra pasuk, then we say that we'll learn the halacha out of Kavachimer. But if we have no way to learn the pasuk, so then we'll say, okay, it's coming to teach us the same thing as the Kavachimer, right? I mean, what else is the pasuk coming? You haven't found anything for the darshan, so okay, so you're going to darshan for the Kavachimer.
Yeah,
Right.
we had this by Yisur Bia, but Yisur Bia again. That is by a choisa, then it said choisa by the father, choisa by the mother, and it says by a choisa by both of them. You can learn out from a Kavachimer. So they said the entire cuss of a craw. Out of Marcus, I think a few other places, but he could have learned that the one of it was not to learn a lot from an answer from Kavachimer, but But by a chaysai, they also said Torah because of the cross. You know, so
Right.
the kavachon would have been good, but Torah because of the cross. So over there it wasn't Shaninin. Over there it was
Okay,
the
so
Torah
that's what
because
you're
of the cross.
Yeah, so that's that. Okay, that's what he's saying. But okay, I'm just not understanding. If you don't, okay, if you don't have something to darshan, so then of course the pasuk is coming to teach that. Okay, fine. The Tana. So again, we know it from the Yatzachinam and Kasef, right? That's how we know that a kesef works. Again, we're going through the Mishnah, right? Of how do you know that kesef, the woman gets to keep her kesef, and she gets married that way, right? So we said we know from the Yatzachinam and Kasef. Fine. The Tana. But there's another Tana has a different source. The Tanya Kiyikach Ish Isha Ubala, and a man, when a man marries a woman and he's together with her, and if she, this is the end of Gittin, right? And if she doesn't find favor in his eyes, because he found Ki Matzaba Erbas Davar. Right? So what does it mean? Kiyikach Ish Isha Ein Kicha Ela Bekesef. Kicha means kesef. V'cheinu oimer nosati kesef hasada kach mimeni. Right? I gave kesef hasada, take it from me. Right? So you see that the kicha is with kesef. Right? It says kiyikach ishisha when a man takes a woman, and kicha is with kesef. So when it says v'aloi dinu, isn't a kavachamer mat alma avriya she'ena niknas bebia alma avriya. Right? When a father sells his daughter, the master is not kind of the daughter by sleeping with her. That doesn't work. But niknas bekesef, he buys her with kesef. Zu sheniknas bebia einadin shetikna bekesef. This one that is kind of bebia, isn't it a kavachaymer that she's kind of that you be kind of with kesef, right? It seems like a pasha the kavachaymer, right? Again, the father sells himself. Father sells the daughter. He can't sell her. How's the guy buying the father's daughter? He can't do it with bia. He does it with kesef, right? So fine. So a girl who can be sold and marriage with bia, kol shekain, should work with kesef, even though we don't know how bia works yet. We
Why?
don't know
Why?
He
What's the problem?
He buys an Amavriya to work, so he pays money because they have to work, not to have bia with him. And this guy buys a woman to marry to have bia with him, so bia works. Not a kalvachan, has nothing to do. Each one has nothing to do with the other thing. Zero. Zero.
I'm saying, but it's still you still have. I understand what you're saying, but you don't have the kavachaymer.
No.
Why? I mean, if she buys,
where are you coming with that bia is more kal? And kesef is chomer.
No, so now you're asking a different
Because
thing.
by one it works and by one it doesn't.
Right. I mean, if you want to ask, we don't even know yet how bia works for marriage. That's true. That's coming up in 2 blocks from now or 3 blocks from now. But I guess the Gemara has confidence that we're going to know that bia works for marriage. Right. So
correct.
if you know
but how
that
do you know it's more kal than
it
kesef?
doesn't make a difference. Meaning, Almavriya, selling a girl as a servant, you cannot. The way the boss is kind of her is not through bia. It doesn't work. But money does work. So in a case where bia does work as a kinyan, kol shekain, money should
maybe
work.
bia is more chomer than kesef.
But money always works.
It's
Money always
irrelevant.
works.
I don't understand. It's the kinyan. It's what the kinyan is done with. It's irrelevant if that's chamor or kal. It's the different situation that's chamor or kal. Is selling a girl as a slave more chamor or more kal than marriage? Well, if marriage has more kinyanim than selling a slave, then marriage is more kal than selling a slave because there are more kinyanim. Doesn't matter what the kinyan is. The fact that there are more kinyanim makes it more kal, more easy.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever.
I saw brought down the idea that bia. I forgot. I saw brought down earlier. Bia is more shaykh als kinyan when it comes to isha because it's the actual ishas you're affecting. So meaning if it's able to do maybe that's if it's able to do bia kol shekain a life their kinyan, meaning this is but if anything that's a different type of svara because then it makes sense bia more than kinyan kesef by Kiddushin. But
Right. Oh, yeah.
But Bia
That's
is more
right,
shy of the
exactly.
Kedushin.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I hear. But okay. But the bottom line is like Gershon said, the Kenyan, if one Kenyan works for one, and then another one, a different Kenyan works for that. So then a kol shekain, it should going to be in the same in a. Well, I don't know what I'm saying. I don't know how I'm saying it now. But meaning it's a kol shekain. If it doesn't work, if Bia doesn't work for Amavriya, but money does work, so then in a marriage where Bia does work, so for sure money should work. Okay, whatever it is. So then Gemara says Yavama techiach. See, Naftali, you should have said that. Yavama disproves it. Why? Sheniknas bebia, because the Yavama is a case where you can be kind of a Yavama with Bia, Ve'eniknas bekesef. But kesef does not work, right? You can't do Yibum with money. Yibum has to be done with Bia. So you see there is precedence for a situation where Bia is a Kenyan and money is not a Kenyan, right? So it's not necessarily a Kavachan, which is maybe what Rabban and Naftali was trying to say. Anyways, so when I asked Mali Yavama Shekain ain't Niklas B'shtar, like, well, Yavama doesn't get Shtar either. Shtar doesn't work for Yavama either. But marriage does work with shtar. So Mela, we found a different reason why Bia doesn't work. So one answers Tamalamek Yikach Ish. That's what it says when he takes a man, right? Meaning when a man takes a woman, right? So that's what we're saying, that it's money. So when it says Halamali Kroha Asila, what do you need a pasuk for? Right? We just said it in a Kavachaimer. I mean, it's almost like the Gemara is going in a circle. So he said, they want to ask the kasha. It's a kavachaimer. So then we prove the kavachaimer. We prove it. So we say, okay, the pasuk tells you this. So he said, what do you need the pasuk for? So I'm from the beginning, from the ikar of the din, meaning here din means a kavachaimer. There's a pircha. There's a question. Where you bring him right from Amavriya, who again. A guy is not kind of a guy as fellow's daughter with Bia. It only works with Kesef. Mal Amavriya shekin yoytze bekesef. Amavriya is different because Amavriya, how did they get divorced? With money. Meaning it's not really a divorce. Meaning how do you get rid of a female slave? You buy her out. Tam Bazu sheni yoytze bekesef. By marriage, you cannot get divorced with money, like we said from Sefer Krisus, right? So Tamalamer, that's why we need the pasuk Yikachish. So the Gemara is basically saying that it's a very nice kavachomer, but it doesn't work. Why? Because Amevriya is different. Because maybe the reason why you can buy an Amevriya is because you could also get rid of her with money. So Mamela, it has a chumrah to it, but it's not necessarily going to work for marriage. So Kamash Malan that says Yikachish. Fine. So then the Gemara says so now we have two pshatim. How you know that kesef goes to the you can buy a woman, you can marry a woman with kesef, right? Either from yatzachina and from kiyikach ish. So why do we need both? Right? Maybe kiddushin, right? That the money that the husband gives is hers. So because that's why it says v'yatzachinam to say that the money goes to the father. Because Rachman of Yatzachinam, and if the Torah would have just said Yatzachinam, how that's where the woman gives the money to the man and is Makadashim. Havi Kedushin. That's when it's Kedushin. Because Rachman Kisika. So the pasuk is telling you that the man has to give the money to the woman, not the woman giving the money to the man. It's an interesting havamina, but we would have thought that she's going to say to him, "Hare ata mikudash li." That's the way Rashi says it, right? Or the way Rashi is tiskadishli. Yeah, but so meaning you would have thought that. So kamashlan ki yikach ish. It's the man has to take the woman. So when it says v'loy dinu, that's a kavachayim. My yivama shein niknes b'kesef. Yavama, you don't buy a Yavama with Kesef, right? It has to be with Bia. But Niknes Bia, so Zu, Niknes Bekesef. So this, meaning a regular girl, you marry her with Kesef, and then Niknes Bia. Shouldn't you be kind of with Bia? Right? So Gemara says Amar Avriya Techiv. That's not a Kal V'Chaymer because Amar Avriya disproves that Niknas B'Kesef. You could be Kaina with Kesef, a Niknas B'Bia, and you can't be Kaina with Bia. So Gemara says no, that's not a Kasha Malam Avriya Shein Kinyon L'Shum Ishas. And Amar Avriya, there's no purchase there that's for marriage. Tara B'Zusha Kinyon L'Shum Ishas. But a regular marriage, the whole Kinyon is in order for her to be a wife. So Tama Laimar Uba Allah. So that's why it says Uba Allah that Bia makes Kiddushin. Right? So again, it's the same Shaka V'Taya why Bia works. Right? Again, we had the same with the Shaka V'Taya with Kesef. We know that Kesef works either from Ki Yikach Isha or from V'Yatzachina, or both. And we just said why we need both. Then we said Ba'Allah, the word Uba'Allah. Did I skip that line? I might have skipped that line. Did I skip it, Gershon? Okay, I'm reading it again. Uba'Allah, Melamed, I apologize. Uba'Allah, Melamed, Sheniknis Babiyah. It teaches us that you could be kind of woman Babiyah. How do you know? Because Uba'Allah, right? When he sleeps with her. So we learn from that she's Niknis Babiyah. So Gemara says, well, like Dinku, why do you need a pasuk? It's a kavachaymer. Yavama, you don't buy it with money. You buy it with bia, niknas bebia. Zusha niknas bekesef. So a single girl who you buy her with kesef, ain't a dinsha niknas bebia. Is in a kavachaymer, she's niknas bebia. No one answers Amavriya techiach, but Amavriya will disprove it because there she's niknas bekesef. Pay niknas bebia, she's not niknas bebia. So when I ask, Malam Avriya, she can't kinyan l'shum ishus. Her kinyan is for ishus. Tamar bezusha kinyan l'shum ishus. This one, she ain't kinyan l'shum ishus. Yom Avriya is not for ishus, right? And bezu, Tamar bezusha kinyan l'shum ishus. That the kinyan is for ishus. Tamar lemru ba'allah. So then we need the word ba'allah. But then the question is, v'lam likra asila. Why do you need a pasuk of ba'allah? We just had a good kavachaymer. We have a kasha from the beginning, similar to what we said before. We're learning out the kavachaymer that bia should work for marriage. You're learning out for yavama. Mali yavama shekain zekuka vaymedes. A yavama is different. The reason why bia works is because she's attached to this guy. After her brother-in-law dies, she's forced to marry this guy. She cannot marry anybody else. So there's already a connection. So since there's a connection, we're going to say bia works. But a regular single girl, she ain't skuka vaymedes. She don't have to marry this guy. So maybe there bia wouldn't work. So meaning therefore your whole kal v'chaymer doesn't work. So Talmud Lamer ba'ala. So that's what a pasuk needs to tell you, the word ba'ala, to tell you that she needs that bia does work. Okay. I'm sorry for that confusion there. All right, we'll stop over here. The Olam should have themselves a fine night.
So okay.
Thank you.
What's the problem? Good night. What's the problem?
There's muting businesses.
Yeah, they don't let you unmute. But so you're saying Bia is not the default.
You know what? If people would respect the mute, then maybe we wouldn't have to control it. But until then, unfortunately, we're gonna have to keep people as children. It's not very complicated. I hate to say,
can you hear me?
If you don't have the brains or the wherewithal to know how to unmute yourself and mute yourself, then unfortunately, we're just going to keep it muted. You can find a different Daf.
Okay, what are you saying, Naftali? What do you want to say, Naftali Landau?
I'm saying is that the default really is not meaning Kesef is always the preferred way of being kind of, you're saying, because we see that Bia really is not really only
why?
When
why are you saying that? Why are you saying that?
No, because it doesn't work. It doesn't work in some of the scenarios to be kind of a woman.
True. That's true.
It doesn't work buying a container of milk either. What's that have to do with anything?
But wouldn't it make sense to be kind to somebody with something that always works?
Yavama doesn't work. I would say Yavama Bia works. It doesn't work. Kesef doesn't work.
Oh, Kesef doesn't work.
Yaakov, I would say not Kesef specific, but Bia is definitely the most mechudishtik kinyan when it comes to an Isha. Shtar also is a regular kinyan, so it's not just Kesef; it's also Shtar. Any regular kinyan,
right?
You would say would work for Kiddushin, But in the Maskana of the Gemara, it's mashma that Bia is much more mechudishdik to say it when it comes to Kinyani Kiddushin that it would work. Because it's only Rashi says Ligmar because from the idea of from just Yavama alone, you would not know that Bia should be enough to make a Kinyan Kiddushin.
Well,
Because you're missing the
we have it
critical
here.
form
Though.
of
The only
Kinyan.
reason why we know is because we have it here.